let us talk about the political system of the United States of America. Now, the United States of America are a federal republic consisting of 50 states. There are also other entities other than states in the US, but the states are the most important parts of the US. There are 50 states. The largest state is Alaska. The smallest state in scale is Rhode Island. And for example, the most populous state is California on the west coast. So what are the other entities other than states? There's also the federal district. The federal district is called District of Columbia, and we can find the capital city of the United States, Washington, D.C., right there. Columbia is a poetic name given to the United States in the past, and it is also sometimes anthropomorphized. That means that there is a personal representation of Columbia, a young woman holding a torch or holding the flag of the United States. We can find this representation, for example, in the logo of Columbia Pictures, a large movie-making company in the US. Washington, D.C. is the seat of Congress, that means the legislative body of the United States, and also of the White House, where the President of the United States lives and works. Other entities also include 14 territories of the United States, which can be found in the Caribbean Sea and in the Pacific Ocean. Now, these are quite interesting entities because a large number of US citizens lives on these islands and in these territories, but the rights of these people are not equal to the rights of the citizens living in the states. So, for example, if you live in Guam, which is one of the most important territory, you have some rights and you can serve in the Army of the United States of America, but you can't vote a representative to the Congress. There are some representatives, but they cannot vote on the laws. So the territories are one of the strangest parts of the American political system. There are also territories which can be classified as various territories. These are just small parts which have some strategic value. And as an example, I would mention the Midway Islands in the Pacific Ocean, because there was a very important battle of the Second World War, the Battle of Midway. Moving on, the United States of America, as I mentioned, are a federal republic, which means we have state governments and one federal government. The federal government is the most important one, but the state governments still have quite a lot of power, which they can use in their own states. The head of the state government in each state is called a governor. It means governor is the head of each state government. And state governments have the power to make laws that are not granted by the federal government, which means that we have a very interesting thing happening here. That there are different laws in each state. Of course, many of the laws and the basic principles are similar, but we can have very different laws in each state of the United States. Now, let us talk about major political parties in the United States. This is actually quite simple because there are only two major, meaning most important political parties. Let's start with the Republican Party, because the president at the time of making this video is Donald Trump, a member of the Republican Party. The Republican Party is sometimes known as GOP, as for Grand Old Party, and it is known for its conservative attitude, which means that the Republicans often share and promote traditional and Christian values. Let us not forget that in the US, religion plays a very important part in the politics of the United States. And these values focus on freedom, family, and, as I said, religion. From the standpoint of economics, we can say that Republican Party adheres to economic liberalism. That means focus and emphasis of the free market economy. The best example here would probably be Ronald Reagan, who, along with Margaret Thatcher in the UK, became a symbol of the conservative and economically liberal governments of the world. The symbol of the Republican Party is an elephant. The origin of this symbol goes back quite far to the past, and it was originated in a caricature in which probably the Republican Party was symbolized as an elephant for its strength and mass, we might say. The second major political party is the Democratic Party. Barack Obama, president before Donald Trump, was a member of this party. And this is the oldest political party in the United States, and we might even say that it is probably the oldest still functioning political party in the whole world. Now, the Democratic Party nowadays is connected with social liberalism, which is a political and economic ideology, which focuses on regulated market economy, promotes civil and political rights, and from the dichotomy right and left politics, we might say that the Democratic Party leans more to the left because it promotes welfare state. Now, some opinions of the Democratic Party might seem way too leftist to many citizens of the United States, but compared to our political system, Democratic Party is still on the right. The symbol of the political party is a donkey. Donkey is also a very old symbol. The origin probably being connected with Andrew Jackson, who founded the Democratic Party and who was ridiculed and symbolized as a donkey. Now, the Democratic leaders, they took this symbol and made it as their own. I haven't mentioned the most important Republican president, which was without a doubt Abraham Lincoln, who is also the first Republican president who has ever been incumbent. Let us now move to the three branches of the government. As in the Czech Republic, the governing power of the state is divided between three branches. There is the legislative power, the executive power, and the judicial power. These are represented by the Congress, the President, and federal courts. Let us now start with the legislative branch. The purpose of this branch is mainly to create laws, impose taxes, and the Congress is also needed to declare a war. So when there's a war in which the United States are active, it is the Congress who decides if the US will join or not, or will declare a war or not, but it is the president who is the leader of the army, that is the commander-in-chief. In the US, as in the Czech Republic, we have what is called a bicameral legislature, which means that there are two separate chambers in the Congress. This has the same purpose as in the Czech Republic, that there is a balance of powers, and if something goes wrong in the one chamber, there is the other chamber to prevent catastrophe or to prevent some damage to democracy, if put in very simple terms. The main body of the legislative branch is the Congress, and it has two chambers. The first chamber is called the House of Representatives, and the people sitting there are called representatives, or more commonly, congressmen. There are 435 congressmen in this body, and the number of congressmen from each state is equal to the number of people living in the state. So the most populous state, California, has the largest number of representatives in this chamber. California has 53 seats. The head of this house is called Speaker. The current head, Nancy Pelosi, is from the Democratic Party, and there are elections held every 2 years for the House of Representatives. The second chamber of Congress is called the Senate. There are only 100 senators, and each state has 2 senators. So in this case, the number of representatives for each state is equal. The elections to Senate are held every 2 years, but each senator has a term of 6 years, making it very, very similar to the system we have in the Czech Republic. Moving on to the executive branch of the government, the most important part of this branch being the president. The president of the United States is the head of state. He is the head of the government, and he's also commander-in-chief. What does this mean? This means that the US are represented by the president on the international level. The president is also making the most important decisions in the government. He's not alone there. He has a cabinet of experts which are focused on each domain of governing the state, but the president is the one who is the most important for making the decisions. The president is also commander-in-chief, which means that he is the one giving orders to the army or to the military, and when there is a war in which the United States are participating, which happens quite a lot actually, the president is the most important decision maker in the war. The president has a term for 4 years, and he can be re-elected once. What are the requirements for a candidate? The candidate must be a natural-born citizen of the United States. He must be at least 35 years old, and he must be the resident or a resident of the United States for at least 14 years. The current president, we call this the incumbent president, is Donald Trump. He is the 45th president of the United States of America, and he's a member of the Republican Party. Donald Trump, at the time of making this video, of course, is the president, and there are many controversies surrounding Donald Trump. Donald Trump was a celebrity and businessman before he became the president, making him quite a unique specimen among the US presidents. There are many controversies surrounding him, but to be honest, there are many controversies surrounding probably every American president in office. In the previous case of Barack Obama, who was president before Donald Trump, it was the controversy around use of drones in warfare. And George W. Bush can be considered probably one of the most controversial presidents of all time. The President of the United States is also sometimes called leader of the free world. And many consider this person to be the most powerful man in the world. There were 44 presidents before Donald Trump, and they were members of both political parties, the Democratic and Republican one. The last branch of the government is the Supreme Court. Is the judicial branch represented mainly by the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the federal judiciary of the United States. There are 9 judges appointed by the president with the advice and consent of the Senate, and these judges are appointed for life, which means that they can leave out of their own will, which happens quite a lot, or their term ends when they pass away. I have one more interesting fact I would like to mention regarding the politics of the United States, and it's gerrymandering. Gerrymandering can be defined as a practice intended to establish an unfair political advantage for a particular party or group by manipulating district boundaries. Now, this means that when there's an election, each district of the state is voting for a representative, but the districts can be redrawn, and this can cause a state in which a higher number of people votes for a Republican or a Democrat are actually not represented because the districts are drawn in such a way that the opposing candidate wins in more districts, even though he doesn't have more votes. The political system of the United States is a vast and complex issue, and I have been talking only very simply about the basics. But if you would like to find more, there are many sources on the internet you can choose from.